All right, no flashy open tonight. I said, come right to me. Let's go. No bells and whistles. Let's just do it. It's Friday. We got places to be. The weekend is upon us. I'm Dan Haggerty. Hello. Welcome to The Story. So thank you to everybody who was communicating this week and letting us know what's on your mind, what you want us to see, what you want us to cover for you. Please keep those coming. Email us at thestory@kgw.com. You can find me on Twitter with the hashtag HeyDan. Now, when we're deciding to put this show together each and every day, we usually look for the big issue stories, right? Things like homelessness and gun violence and politics, the stuff we can really sink our teeth into and explore in depth. But other times we just see something we can't ignore. For instance, busy beaver causes brush fire at Multnomah Falls. This is a wonderful title of a news release. This is a news release we got from Corbett Fire this morning. Bravo to you. Clearly, it had to lead our show tonight. Now, to top it off, the press release only included one follow-up sentence to that title. Last night, Corbett Fire responded to a fire caused by a beaver at Multnomah Falls. I'm sorry, what? I'm going to need a little bit more information than that. It kind of sounds like a Mad Lib involving the state animal, our most common natural disaster, and one of our favorite landmarks. Fortunately, for everyone mystified by this as much as we are, we did dig a little deeper and got some more information along with a photo of a burned tree that a beaver obviously got to. Those are beaver cuts there. So apparently last night, a beaver was doing beaver stuff, chewing that tree, and made a pretty good dent in it when some wind came by and knocked that tree over, and it hit a power line. That sparked a brush fire. Now, obviously, Multnomah Falls is an Oregon treasure, and it's been threatened by wildfires before, so 20 firefighters got out there right away. They were called out last night. They got the fire under control in about 2 hours. No word if the beaver is going to be charged. Now, just for the sake of clarity, I will say, trees are part of nature. So are beavers. So is wind. Wind blows. Beavers cut down trees. We know this. Power lines are not part of nature. We make those. So, did the beaver really cause the brush fire? All right. Just to all the beavers out there, I don't want to give them a hard time. It's a Friday. So, let's get to our big story. And we're going to be talking about the Newberg School Board. Now, in case you haven't been watching us for the last few weeks, first of all, what did we do wrong? Why aren't you watching us? Second of all, let me catch you up just really quick. The school board wants to ban Black Lives Matter and pride flags from classrooms. And they recently expanded that to banning all political and controversial symbols from the classroom. Obviously, the controversy has spread beyond this tiny school district. I mean, take this high school soccer match as an example. The Newberg soccer team was playing Southridge, a high school in Beaverton, and the Southridge team took a knee in solidarity with Newberg and the protest to this ban. We've been hearing some pretty strong opinions on this for weeks now, and that's why we keep talking about it. And some members of the school board say all of this nonstop discussion and debate and protest is exactly why the ban should be in place.
And I agree with a lot of the people of why these flags need to be removed, and because it is so divisive, and it's obviously clear how it is affecting our community and our schools and our students.
The Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon School Board Association, they've weighed in on this week, both saying that Newberg needs to reverse the ban. They say it's illegal and a ban on free speech, and that it harms vulnerable kids. Now let's start with that second point about vulnerable kids. The Oregon Department of Education put forth a resolution this week that, quote, specifically calls on the Newberg School Board to encourage district staff to celebrate and stand in solidarity with students through the use of signs, flags, place cards, and symbols, and affirm in words, policy, and action that every student belongs. Now last year, they put out a, quote, student success plan for LGBTQ kids. One of the things that they recommended was that schools hang posters encouraging safe spaces for marginalized kids. And the school psychologist at Newberg, who regularly talks to kids who are having a hard time in school, spoke up at this past week's meeting and said that it was necessary to create safe spaces. Now let's pivot to that first point that they made. Is this a ban on free speech? That's where it becomes a bit of a gray area. Now, first, we got this question from a viewer, Manic Sarah, I can relate. They wrote, consider the other side of this. Would you want classroom teachers to hang up Confederate flags or Trump stickers? The things in classrooms set the tone in the class. If a student is being distracted by pride flags, where's the education? So first of all, the Confederate flag or like a Nazi symbol, something like that, anything that is outright hate speech is already banned from Oregon classrooms. The Oregon Department of Education made that decision last year. But we're not talking about the hate symbols here. The other side argument actually came up in a school district in Pelham, New York last year. The school district tried to ban the thin blue line flag. Some people say that supports police officers. That's what I always knew it as. Others say it is threatening, especially to people who have been targeted by police brutality. They find that to be a threatening symbol. And it started a debate that the school district decided to then ban all political speech. And we wanted to get some more perspective on this. So we went to law professor Laura Appelman with Willamette University to get some more perspective.
I think your argument is that it's not political speech, it's supporting students. And I know that the Oregon Educational Association and the Oregon School Board has promulgated, I think, more vague opinions saying we want to support all students. And that includes the students for whom, say, the rainbow pride flag, the LGBTQIA students, they're saying it's not a political symbol. It's just saying we support these students. They are safe here. Similarly with the BLM flags. And we've seen this all over the country. You're not saying, I as a teacher am speaking on the part of my employer that I want to dismantle capitalism, but it's that I support students who have been concerned with a lot of, say, police homicide and a lot of the movements that have been going on here. The problem is it's a little, because I think that these flags especially mean different things to different people, right? And so I think for the school board that banned them, they are seeing this as much of a political symbol as, say, a Proud Boys banner in a classroom, which I do not, or John Burke, right? Or even a Nazi symbol, although I think that's obviously the most, and that's, of course, where free speech stops in the classroom.
So the pressure is growing against the Newberg School District. The Newberg Teachers Union and the ACLU, they've both threatened to sue over this ban. The superintendent said that he won't enforce it at all because he's being advised that it would be illegal to do so. And now the Oregon Department of Education has come out against it. The minority members of the board have also tried to rescind it, but they've been outvoted at every turn. But they will be discussing it again later this month. Now let's stay on the school beat for just a minute or 4 or 5. We like talking about schools right now. I know it's hectic for a lot of parents, and this school year has been didn't really bring the relief that I think a lot of us hoped it was going to bring. Yes, school is back in session full time, but like everything during the pandemic, it certainly hasn't come easy. And no, I'm not talking about the mandatory quarantines or the delayed start times or even the outdoor classes. I'm talking about the critical shortage of school bus drivers here in the Northwest and really across the country. And before you say, hey, those parents, they can just drop their kids off by themselves, no big deal. I'm going to stop you right there because some parents don't have a car in the first place or their work schedule just won't allow it. And in many neighborhoods, there is no safe way for kids to walk to school because they don't have sidewalks or the streets are just too busy. Families who can drive their kids to and from school are seeing this, not that dog's nose, what's behind it. Traffic nonstop, a mile long. This is the first day of school at a Vancouver school. Parents saw cars lined up there for about a mile. So even if you live near a school and you don't have a kid that goes there, you're dealing with a lot more traffic. Like I said earlier, the bus driver shortage is a problem across the country, and it stems from a lot of things. Some people, for instance, who would have been bus drivers this year, decided, no, I don't want to sit in a bus packed with unvaccinated kids, which makes sense, especially because a lot of those drivers are traditionally retirees who might have compromised immune systems. Some potential drivers don't want to get the vaccine. That's the choice that they're making, but that is required here in Oregon if you want to drive a bus. So they decided, no, don't want to do that. And some are looking into other industries entirely. As we know, a lot of places are looking for workers right now and offering big incentives that might be a little more enticing than driving a bus full of children on a split shift for relatively low wages. We took a look at Portland Public Schools, though. They're the largest district in the state. And right now, they say they have a whopping 82 vacancies for bus drivers. That's a lot. They usually employ about 300 of them, so that's 28% fewer bus drivers in their workforce. They just don't have them. And they say it's getting bad. And to say it's getting bad really is an understatement. PPS has completely eliminated about a dozen bus routes for Benson and Lincoln high schools. They also say every day, about 10 or 15 other routes will not run because of delays or cancellations. And just as a heads up, about 15 other routes are going to be modified too. Yikes for parents. It's not unusual for them to get a message like this in the morning telling them they're not going to have a bus to get their kid that day. So you better find another option. And oh yeah, you have to do it in the next half hour. Imagine that as you get ready in the morning. We all know that's not easy to do. Portland Public Schools Chief of Staff says they're trying to get creative though to solve this problem.
Identifying front office staff in transportation who can take on routes. We've also mentioned that some of our trainers are also, not training, but instead driving some of those routes. We are also exploring other venues. What does it look like? So we're actually venturing and trying to design a few alternatives, if you will. We're trying to be creative and innovative, and so we'll have more to say in terms of some new offerings here soon that hopefully will help alleviate some of those pressures.
So what solutions are there? Well, some states are calling on the National Guard to help out. This was in Massachusetts, where soldiers are training to drive kids to school. And yes, before you even say it, I know it seems a little silly to do this, but the National Guard has been an incredible resource during the pandemic, and they're proving it once again. Right here in Oregon, we've talked about it several times. They've helped distribute the vaccine. They're now working in hospitals that are overwhelmed across the state to ease the burden on healthcare workers. We reached out to the Oregon Department of Education to find out if they think this is a good idea for them, if some soldiers might actually help drive buses, and they say all options are being considered, but right now the National Guard is pretty busy helping with hospitals, and school districts should use federal relief money to just hire more bus drivers if they can. Now let's switch the bus driver gears and talk about something else. Let's talk about another trend happening both here in Portland and across the country, an uptick in gun violence. Yesterday, Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt released an online interactive dashboard on gun-related crimes his office has prosecuted since 2019. The dashboard highlights charge details, descriptions of the defendants and victims, and incident locations down to the neighborhood. According to the DA's office, from January through August in 2019, they prosecuted 51 gun-related crimes. That number then nearly tripled during the same time period in 2020 for a total of 152 cases. And this year, just this year, they've already prosecuted 285 cases, from 51 to 285 in 3 years. Now let's take a look at the shooting numbers in general this year, which are a lot more jarring, I would say, than those prosecuted case numbers. Portland has seen more than 850 shootings so far this year, leaving 283 people injured and 46 others dead. We do love talking about solutions, though, on this show, not just the doom and gloom and the bad stuff, but how it can be fixed. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler's press conference this morning. He, alongside Police Chief Chuck Lavelle, presented some specific solutions to the city's curbing of gun violence.
What we're in is a new environment where we have multiple public safety crises taking place at the same time. We have a police bureau that is overtaxed in terms of personnel. I have pledged that we won't just sit on our hands. We're actually moving forward on strategies to give the police bureau the appropriate personnel, the tools, the training, and the resources they need in order to be able to do their jobs effectively in this new environment. And we also need to continue to put community voices front and center around reform.
The mayor says he wants to get more officers on the street immediately through a Rehire Program. This means about 80 officers who were eligible to retire in July can come back now and continue to serve. Now, that program was eliminated last year for being too expensive to hire back those veteran officers. But pending some available resources, Wheeler says he'll send a proposal to reopen that program this fall. And you'll remember this one. The city passed that $6 million plan to tackle gun violence earlier this year. More than $4 million was given to community groups and nonprofits that work with the neighborhoods hit hardest by gun violence. More than $1 million went toward hiring 24 unarmed park rangers. None of that money went to the Portland Police Bureau. So where do we go from here? Well, Wheeler said the $6 million is going to good use through the community, but says it's hard to see when the number of shootings continues to rise. When we come back, we got a story that you just don't want to miss. It's a woman who went in the search of the man she loved, who she hadn't seen in 42 years after she says she made a huge mistake.
I did a very stupid thing 42 years ago, and I've regretted it ever since.
Trust me, you're going to want to see this one. And just a little warning, I cried a bit watching it the first time, so you've been warned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Apparently I had a little slip of the tongue. I didn't notice. I mean, who can blame me? I talk so fast. Welcome back. I always go through your comments and questions during the break. Keep sending them to the story at kgw.com or use that hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. I also want to remind you about our Hey Help campaign. This week we're asking you to please consider donating to With Love. They help support foster families in Oregon. They provide them the things that they need, blankets and books and diapers. These are necessities that people have to have. And if you want to help them out, trust me, they would be appreciative. Just hold the camera on your phone to the QR code on your screen and it'll bring you to a donation page. You can also go to kgw.com/HeyHelp. Now, the pandemic has given us a lot of time to reflect on things, on our lives that we're living right now, and on the lives that we lived, on our past. For one woman, that meant trying to find her long-lost love. Catherine Cook and photographer John Gudgel take us on her journey.
The plants in Jeannie Gustafson's garden have it good.
Put some water in here.
Lots of water. It's not in her nature to forget them or anyone. So it just makes sense that being out here takes her back to him.
He was my first true love, always, and that doesn't go away.
It was 50 years ago. Jeannie and Steve Watts were college sweethearts at Loyola University, Chicago.
He was very handsome. He was 6'4". I like tall guys.
This is the only picture Jeannie has of them from college, but memories, she has plenty.
He was very caring. He always treated me like a lady. He was a gentleman.
Even so, Jeannie says none of that would have mattered to her mother, who did not approve of interracial dating.
I was very hurt and very baffled by what my family did and said.
I never thought you could be mine.
So for the nearly 8 years Jeannie and Steve were together,
And we had to keep it a secret.
her family never knew. Jeannie became a nurse. Steve got a master's in linguistics and taught German. But over time, their relationship became strained. First by distance, then opposite schedules. One day, it all became too much for Jeannie. She broke up with Steve on her work break over the phone.
I regretted what I did after I did it. It was almost immediate. I mean, I knew I shouldn't have ended the relationship the way I did, but at that point, I didn't know what else to do.
This summer marks 42 years since that breakup. Jeannie got married, then divorced. She cared for countless patients, then retired. Through everything, she never forgot Steve. Last fall, Jeannie set out to find Steve. She scoured the internet for family records, phone numbers, addresses. Nothing panned out. After 7 months of searching, she was ready to stop.
If nothing comes up, then I'm done.
It's what Jeannie told herself before mailing one last letter. She hoped it would reach Steve's niece in Iowa. It did. She told Jeannie Steve was living in a care home outside Chicago.
But I can't tell you how happy I was when I found out where he was.
Jeannie wrote Steve a letter right away, but she never heard back. She called the care home and was told simply that Steve could not respond. With nothing else to go on, Jeannie flew to Chicago. She walked into the care home and waited for Steve in the visitor's room.
Right.
This room, where we find them today.
I was 18. I keep telling them this. He makes me feel like I'm 18 all over again.
15 years ago, Steve suffered 2 strokes.
And it's been emotional for him too.
Jeannie was Steve's first visitor in 10 years.
I knew at that moment that he still loved me, and this time it was going to be forever. I just knew it. Right.
It's difficult for Steve to talk, but he still finds ways to make Jeannie laugh.
I ask him for a smile and he cranks it up.
And with that laughter, there is also forgiveness and resolve.
I did a very stupid thing 42 years ago, and I've regretted it ever since. And all I can do now is love him as best I can and see to it that he's happy.
After her first visit in July, Jeannie flew back home.
She comes home and I said, "So how was your trip?"
Neighbor and dear friend Tina Mattern had no idea why she'd gone.
She pulls out a bottle of Fireball and a box of Kleenex and says, "I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a love story."
It really is quite a story.
Jeannie's brother, Tony Mathis, was just a kid when Jeannie and Steve were dating. Like the rest of his family, he never knew they were a couple. It makes him sad.
But I do recall her wanting to bring Steve home, and that not going over very well.
Now, Tony is doing everything he can to help. He sent Steve a cell phone so he could talk with Jeannie while they were apart. And he set up a medical transport for Steve from Illinois to Oregon.
The fact that they're together, they still love each other, they still enjoy each other's company is really all that matters.
Jeannie pooled her savings. She came up with $14,000 to cover Steve's medical transport. Friends pitched in where they could. Soon, everything was covered, even the plants.
"Please water for me." "Yeah, okay."
10 days later, Jeannie was back on a plane to Chicago. This time, she wasn't coming home without Steve. On a bright August morning, the pair loaded into this transport van and hit the road. 2 days and 2,100 miles later, they were home, together at last.
I wake up in the morning thinking about this love story going on across the street. It's just beautiful. So we both carried each other in our hearts all these years.
Jeannie is Steve's new nurse.
Want a sip of water?
Watering a different kind of garden now. And Steve?
Yes.
What?
Steve is Jeannie's everything.
I loved him very much when we were younger and we went together. And I knew he loved me. But it wasn't until all of this and we've been talking, I didn't know how much he loved me. I really didn't know.
In Northwest Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
I think that story, it's so beautiful, but everybody kind of remembers a different part of it. To me, it's her being his first visitor in 10 years. I just imagine that meeting, just so powerful. What a great story, Catherine. Thank you. All right, keep sending in those questions and those comments. Let us know what's on your mind. Send them to the story at kgw.com. Don't forget to use the hashtag #HeyDan. I'll read a few when we finish this thing up. Next. Okay, so Rob wrote in. He was wondering how we came up with the lead story about the beaver supposedly starting a brush fire after the tree was chomping on, knocked over a power line. He said, "Man, I would love to have seen the discussion on which story to lead with tonight. Was there alcohol involved?" Well, we decide those stories at about 9:45 in the morning, so no alcohol involved. But the amazing team that I work with that helps me put this thing together every single day and has all these brilliant ideas that make me look smart and involved constantly, they have deserved that alcohol now, if they would like it. It's Friday. Enjoy the weekend. You too, if that's your sort of thing. I'm Dan Haggerty. That's the story. Keep writing us in. Let us know what's on your mind. See you back here on Monday.